Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel in Smart Coding. In this video, I'm going to talk about the API management. So this is a part of AZ-204 certification, and it's one of the important things that you should be aware of if you're learning towards the Azure cloud. Alright, come, let's dive in. So this is the part one, and I'm going to talk about the API management and some more details. And also in the upcoming videos, I will demo with a live example and you'll understand more. So what is Azure API Management? Basically, it's a Azure service to create a consistent and modern API gateways for the existing backend services. Okay, so if we have many APIs which is supporting the backend, so Azure API Management will stand in front of those backend services. Okay, we will see. It provides secure, scalable API access for your applications. So now we will take a look at the Azure API Management components. So basically there are three components: API Gateway, Azure Portal, and Developer Portal. API Gateway accepts the API calls and routes them to the backend. Okay, but for the Azure Portal, it's basically the administrative interface where you set up all your API programs for the API management. And obviously developer portal is for the consumers, like for the developers who wants to consume the API that you are hosting behind the API management. So web users interfaces for developers where they can read the API documentation and also they can see whether they want to opt it or not. So the diagram that you're seeing on screen is one of the example. So there are basically client apps, and then the next piece will be the API management, and API management will face the client app. So all the requests will come to API management, and API management will decide where to route the incoming requests to which API, right? So that's why we call it as service 1, service 2. It could be like 100 service also. Okay, so this API management will handle all those things, and eventually the API that is hosted, which is receiving the request, will process the request and send back the response. Okay, so this is the frontline kind of thing. So this is another typical example. So basically your web application interacts with the API gateway, and then API gateway will eventually forward the request to the backend APIs, and then backend API will do its process and then finally return with the response data. So let's take a look at the API gateway capabilities. Okay, so it accepts the API calls and then route them to the backend. That is what we discussed, and then it also can verify the API keys, and then it can reject the request. It can also verify the JWT token in the starting of the API management, meaning in the front end itself it can actually verify it. You don't need to have this JWT token getting verified by your APIs. API management, which is API gateway itself, can verify. It can verify the certificates and can verify other credentials as well. You can also enforce this usage quotas and rate limit, right? How many requests per second is coming, or how many is allowed, or for a given customer or a client, totally what is the consumption plan they have used. So if it goes beyond such request, it can actually stop them. And then we will see all these things in the demo, but let's understand a few more things. So it can also catches the backend response. The cache mechanism is also present, which will help us to speed up the request response. We don't need to always talk to the backend if the response is going to be the same, right? The static data, like we see the categories, and those things generally don't change so frequently. So we can set up how long the cache has to be there, and then it can respond immediately. So those are a few of the capabilities that I was discussing with you guys, and then we will see more as we go in the demo. Now, if we have to talk about something on the Azure portal capabilities, basically the Azure portal itself, right? So it can define or import an API schema. It can also set up the policies like quotas, and then transform the API content like XML to JSON, JSON to XML, and many policies are there. So basically you can set up the policies that are needed as per the need. It can also package the APIs into products. You can manage users and many more. So what are developers portal capabilities then? So developers portal is kind of you and me, right, who wanted to consume the API. So we can, as a developer, what do you expect? So the developer portal will expose all these things. It can read the documentation, the API documentation. It can create an account and subscribe to get an API key, right? There could be many APIs which is deployed behind the API management. You might be interested only in particular services, right? The address service, address lookup service or something. So you can actually get subscribe to a particular product and get the API keys to access those APIs. And then you can also try it out an API via the interface console itself from the developers portal, which will also I will demo it shortly. And then you can also access the analytics, and so many other. There are more on the versions, so you can version the APIs, and then you can do a revisions. Version is basically breaking changes from one API to another API, but revisions are very slightly some modifications done, but it is not going to break the client. Alright, enough theory. Come, let's dive into the actions. So this is the continuation of the previous video, which is API management, and this is part 2. So in this video, we will see how to set up the API management in the portal, the Azure portal, and also we will see how to add the backend API into the API gateway and access that from your Azure portal and from the API management service. Okay, come, let's dive in. So I have opened up the portal.azure.com, and if you come to the search box, you can type the API management, wherein you will see API management service. So click on that, and let's click on create API management service. So it will bring up the regular information board, right? You have to fill up all this information. So I'm going to choose my subscription. I'm going to create a new resource group, so that if I don't want, I can actually delete all the resources that's coming under this group. Okay, so I've named it like that. You can choose if you already have a resource group. Alright, so I will have to choose the region and then the resource name. Okay, so here is the resource name. So the name that you provide here basically for your API management, the API gateway itself. So don't name something related to any of your backend API. Name it in general, which covers all of your backend API. So in my case, I'm naming it as Learn Smart Coding APIs Dev. Okay. So under this, I'll be able to host different APIs. Okay. So now the workspace name is the name and the email address that you have to provide. I'm gonna give my channel name, okay, or I would say it's a development purpose, so I can just give a development, and then the administrator email is the email that you will have to receive the details. So I've put that, and then I'm going to choose the developer plan. You see this, there are many plans, right? The first one is the developer plan. So if you go to Google and search the API management pricing, it will take you to this website. Here you can you can actually see how much has been cost for each of the plan. Okay, for demo purpose, I'm choosing only the developer option. I'm not going with anything else, and you can actually change this region, currency, and all those things, and it will give you some rough estimate. If you really wanted to do it for your demo purpose, that's fine, but if you wanted to start it to use for your personal use, just keep in mind that this is not free, so you'll have to have some short amount incurred. Okay, so for me it's okay. I'm gonna choose the developer account. There's no SLA if you have noticed it. So next is the monitoring thing. See here, we can set up the app insights for doing some analysis, but let's do that later. Let's go with the basic stuff, right? See, scaling is not applicable itself for developer plan. If you change the plan like to premium or standard, then it will allow you to scale. Okay, scaling is how many instances of API management will be deployed. That's called scaling up. Okay, anyway, for us it's not there, so 0. Then let's go to manage entity. We don't need all these things. Okay, and then let's go to protocol. This is all like, if you want to allow these things, you can check, but ideally speaking, TLS 1.2 and above is what is allowed. 1.1 and 1.0 is deprecated, so don't do that. Tax is just only for identification purpose, so during the billing, or if you want to segregate or group it by the DAC name, you can go do it. And the final step is the review and install, and everything is done. Validation is good. I'm gonna hit on the create. The deployment started. So deployment is in progress, and guys, it takes some time. It's not like the other resources. It really takes some time. So if you're planning to do along with me, do this and then continue to watch my video, and by the time you finish the video, you will be able to come here. Okay, so once the deployment process is completed, you will receive the email that the API management service instance is ready and you can start using it. Okay, this email will be triggered from Microsoft because that resource especially is taking some time. Let me know in the comment section how long it took for you, and basically this is how the the email will look. So once it is done, we will explore the resources. Alright, so after waiting for some time, the deployment is done. I clicked on go to resource. This is how we landed on the one that we created. If you see the one that I'm highlighting, that's the developer portal URL. Okay, so we will go and see how the developer portal looks, and then the gateway URL is the one that I just highlighted, the second one. Okay, so developer portal is to access from developer side. Gateway is basically to access the API directly along with the base URL. And then you can all see all the properties like pricing tier, custom domains and all those things. They're all advanced stuff. We don't need it right now. We need to understand first what is API management and how to work with that. Okay. So, and if you see the by default, there is something called Echo API that will be present, but we will do our own API. Okay. If you go to APIs, okay, these are the options. Basically the Echo API, like I said, that's for testing purpose Microsoft has given, but you can actually create APIs using all of these options, any of these options. Okay, so we will choose Open API shortly, but you see this, you can even take the direct Azure resource and create the API management. Like if you have functions, if you have any of the app servers which eventually have the API, you can do it. Now let's go to github.com, and then this is the API that I already have it. Okay, you can go and take the code, and this is what is hosted here. Okay, so this is the URL which is hosted, and you can see all these API returning some valid data. Okay, so if you want, you can click on this category all and see the data is coming. You will see some data coming up because the UI is actually using this. Okay, so we have some data, and we can actually go to products and we can have this data. But like I said, right, all these APIs together is one um, you know one service, I would say, which is dealing with the products, essential product stuff. Okay, so we're gonna use this. And you can see all this data. You can even download it if you want to take a look at the data. In order for us to go with the Open API, it needs the definition of the API. So if you already have the Swagger, if you browse all the way through up, you see this, there's a swagger.json. If I open that, this this JSON will have the complete definition of all the requests that you saw in the Swagger UI. Okay, this is what API management needs. Okay, so let's copy that. We know the URL, and if you come here and click on basic and paste the JSON, it will read this display name and the name. From that you can actually change it, but I'm going to leave it the way it is. And you don't need to touch any of the other stuff. Even if you click on full, okay, there are other things will come, like say if you click on full, there will be other more information like what kind of protocol has to be supported. Do you want to create products, tags? So don't worry, go with the basic. We will create the product, we'll show you how to do it. So I'm clicking on create. Now you see this, under all API, our new API started showing up, and you can see this is in the design view. Okay, if you click on any of this, it will tell you it's designs. Okay, but we need to do a quick testing. So what you have to do is you basically have to click on the test. There's something called test next to the settings. Okay, you see this test, click on this test. Now these APIs can be tested from our API gateway. I'm just hitting the send for the get all categories, and shortly you should receive the response. Yes, we got the response. Now this is how it works, right? So API management is actually sending a request to get all categories, and behind the scene that is executed and then returning the data. Okay, now similarly, if you click on the products, you will receive the product information, right? So we know how the API has to be onboarded to your API management. Now we have API. The next thing is how to set up the developer's account. This is a continuation of the previous video. We are talking about the API management. This is part 3. So what we are going to do in this video is we are going to see how to set up the developers portal for API management. Okay, so I have logged into my account, which is portal.azure.com, and if I go to the resource that I have created, this is the resource that you are seeing, and here on the overview blade you can see developers portal. So if you click on developers portal, it will take you to another page, like the separate page, and let's see how it looks. And you can also see how the the endpoint is looking. See, learn smart coding dash apis dot dev.developers portal. This is the URL basically. Okay, this is the gateway URL, so don't get confused. So when you do this first time, when you open this for the first time, like very first time, the complete look and feel will have some default template. So the developer portal will have some default template, which will have this section, this contoso is the famous one, which we will always see for the examples. Okay, so you can see all these things. Okay, so basically every single thing here is configurable. You can remove something, like I don't like this, I can remove this, I can change the name, you can add anything. You can completely redesign this website the way you want it to show for the developers. Okay, I'm not going to do that now because I'm here to teach you how to do that. So you know how to do this, and then if you do everything, you can click on save, and then once you do those things, you can click on save. It will get saved. So once you've done all the changes and you can hit on save, let's say I can actually change this name um, into whatever I want. Okay, so once you're done with this, let's revert this. Okay, so once you did everything and you can click on save, it will be saved. But if you refresh this page, or even if you try to open this page again, you'll still have these problems. Okay, so the reason is, what you have to do is, this one is not published yet. Alright, so in order for us to publish this portal, the changes that we have made, right, you have to scroll down to the left side under the developers portal, click on the portal overview. You see this? The developer portal has not been published yet. So click on publish, do a yes. Now it is updating and its revision has been updated. This is the revision. I copied this and I opened up a new tab where I have not logged in. So now if I open up this, okay, now you see this is like the deployed version of our developer portal, wherein I can actually click on it. Okay, so if I click explore API, it will take me to the one which is available. And if you remember, we added the essential product API, but that's not listed here. Okay, so I will tell you how to make this available here. So you can actually search API. Let's go back, let's click on sign up. You can actually provide your email address to sign up here as a developer. Okay, so what we will do is, before we do a sign up, let's first add the new API that we added into the account. So I'm coming back to the portal. So if you come to this portal and click on products. Okay, so right now there are two products. Basically, product means it's something that the default one which already has. It's called starter product and an unlimited product. You can add your own product here, but the predefined one has starter, which can accessible from administrator, developers, guest. Okay, and then if you want to add the product, you can actually add the product here, and you can also select whether the added product. So let's say we have a product called consumption product. Okay, so it is based on the number of request. So I'm telling this has to be published. It requires a subscription. They cannot just use it free. And if I check this, it will come for my approval. And if I approve, only that developer who has subscribed to this can able to access it. Okay, and then it can also tell you how many subscribers or how many subscribers, right? How many subscription count is allowed for this kind of a product. Let's leave it empty, and then here itself you can add the product. Okay, so let's say I'm clicking on create, and like here also you can add a product. So let's say I'm clicking on add, and here it will list the products that we have. Okay, so I'm choosing this one and then say create. Okay, so it will create a new product. Okay, so the new product name called consumption, which is accessible by the administrators, and not only that, it already has the product. So let's take a look at this one. If I click on starters, here I can come and add the product. Okay, so the reason why I'm showing this is, today you might have one product, tomorrow you can have many products coming up, like many APIs coming up, and if you want to put those APIs also, the servers also, into any of the existing product, you can do so, or you can actually create a new product which is meaningful. In organization, basically what they will do is, any new services come, the product also will be named related to the service for understandable purpose. Okay, okay, so for now let's choose this. I added this product to this I added this API to this product, so which is saved. Let's go back. Similarly for unlimited also we can add, so it's added. Okay, so all the three has these products added. All right, so the product is added. Now what we have to do is, let's go to the subscription, And see, we can subscription will tell us the products and all the stuff here. Let's go to users. Alright, so right now the users has only my name, that's fine. So we will see how new users are coming up here. So now we have the APIs added to the product. So let's go and sign up from the developer portal. Alright, so I'm here on the sign up page. On the sign up page, I need to list my email ID, and then password. I need to give some password which is strong. So this is for my account. Okay, so I have filled up all the sign up information. Okay, so I'm going to sign up here. So once I sign up, all right, so I entered the new capture code and then the sign up is done. So if I do a sign in, I can actually sign in. So I was trying to sign in and then I was receiving this kind of an validation error, right? So basically the email address that we provided, we need to confirm the email address that we are a real person. So let's go back to that email and see how it looks. See, this is my Gmail to which the email has come. Please confirm this, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to click on this to get it confirmed. So once this is confirmed, we can go back and do a sign in. So now if I sign in, you can see it allowed me to go inside. Okay. So now what we can do is now click on APIs in the top. You can actually see the API that's coming up. Click on this API. Okay, you can actually click on that API and you can see all the details here. Okay, so let's see. So this is my thing and this is the the actual owners one. So let's click on this all category and let's try this out. Let's see what happens. Okay, so I clicked on send and okay, so because the browser is hitting, you can see unable to complete the request. Okay, the cross-origin resource sharing is not enabled. Basically we are hitting it from a different URL to this one, so it's not allowing. Let's go back and fix it. So let's go to the portal. Let's go to portal settings, the portal overview. Okay, so here you see this under the publish one, there's something called enable cross. So we have enabled the cross and then we will also enable the Azure AD authentication. So I'm going to enable this. Okay, we don't need to enable this. Okay, so we can just leave it here. And then now the cross is enabled. So let's go back. Let's hit the send button and here you go. The request went, but we got 401 unauthorized, which is good. So anyone who just subscribed or anyone who just enrolled as a developer cannot access the API. They need to subscribe to that and get the key, only then they can use it. So let's see how to do that. So I'm going to click on this, going to click on the product, and you see this under product, the one that we created is not there because probably we did not publish it, that's why it's not coming. But let's click on the starter product. Okay, so once you have the starter product and what you have to do is you have to subscribe to it. So here's a your new product subscription name. So I would say starter product, and then this is enabled. Click on subscribe. So after the subscription, you can see your account details. You can see two keys, the primary key and the secondary key. Okay, so these keys are required. Okay, so now we have subscribed to that product and a starter thing. So now let's go back to APIs and try that out, whatever we did, and see if that works now. Okay, so all category, try this out and click on send. It's sending. All right, so if you noticed, when you click now, it is sending couple more information. It is sending no cache. It is sending something called OCP APIM subscription key. So the key, the primary key or the secondary key, right, that we used, you can see here, this is the subscription key. And what is the subscription? So here we are using the primary starter, which is the primary key. So based on the primary key, this request being sent with the key, and then because the key is valid, you're subscribed, you're now allowed to access the API. So API gateway is now determining your authorized person, and then it is giving you the result. So it's forwarding the request back to the backend API, and the backend API is processing. It doesn't care who called it, just as long as it receives the request and it's all valid, it's going to respond to it. Okay, and then you receive this the data back. So that's how the developer portal has been set up. So now you know how to set up the developer portal. From the portal you can customize the developer portal, and then you can publish it. You can enable the cross-origin resource sharing under the portal's overview, and then as a developer you need to sign up, then subscribe to one of the product, and then if you access the API you should be able to access it. I hope you enjoyed this. In the next video, we'll talk about products, groups, securities, policies, and more. This is the continuation of the API management video, and we are going to see part 4. In this video, what I'm going to cover is the policies, securities, and more about how to apply the policies, and what kind of policies are there, capabilities of the policies, and what kind of restrictions you can achieve. All those things. Come, let's dive in. So bear with me, you need to understand this first before we do a demo. The next 2-3 videos will be completely demo, there won't be zero theory, so stick to this. Let's understand how it looks, and then we will be very easy for you to implement in the demo. So what are policies? Policies are a powerful capability of Azure API management that allow changing the behavior of the API through the configuration. So with the configuration, you can actually change the behavior of how the API will do. Okay, so policies are nothing but a collection of statements that are executed sequentially on the request or on the response of an API. It could be when it is receiving, or the policies can apply on the response before it was sent to the end client. Okay, so that is called policies. So let me name it some Azure API management policies. Like you can actually convert your incoming XML to JSON, or you can also convert your JSON to XML when you're returning as a response. Okay, so that is one policy, and you can also restrict the number of the amount of incoming calls per minute or per hour, or in total for a subscriber itself. And it also enforces the existing or even the value of the HTTP header, and there are so many things. Okay, so we are going to talk about the policy scope, and there are 4 types of policy scope. One is the global scope, which affects all the API within the instance of the API management. Okay, if you apply some policies to the global scope, then that policy is applicable for all the APIs within that API management. The second level is the product scope. So at the product level, you can apply some policies. You can apply policies directly at the API scope. You can even apply at the operation scope. So operation scope affects only one operation within the API. Okay, so those are the 4 types of scopes under the policies. So when do these policies execute? If you see, there are 4 ways the policies can execute. One is the inbound, one is the backend, the outbound, and then the last one, the error. Okay, if you see on the portal, if you come to this API, you can see this inbound processing, backend, and then outbound processing, and the last one is the error. Error is basically if something goes wrong within this 3 operation, like request is received, and by the time response is sent, if something goes wrong, the error will kick in, and based on what you have configured in the error, it can do this step. Okay, remember one thing, anything that goes wrong within the let's say you have a couple of policies, and it just some exception happened in one of the API, it will skip everything. It will directly come to the error handling stuff. Okay, now let's take a look at the examples of these things, right? Just quickly. So if you click on add policy under the inbound, you have various inbound policies. Okay, so these are the policies that you can apply for the incoming request. So you can check whether the incoming request is from a particular IP. That's called IP filtering. You can limit the call rate, you can mock the response, you can do some query parameters. You see this, so many things are there. You can check this cross-origin resource sharing. You can validate JWT. This is one of the users was asking, can I offload the JWT validation here? Yes, of course you can do. We will see that in a different demo, but that comes under the inbound policy. I'm going to discard that. And similarly, if you go to the backend policies, so similarly, you can actually go to backend policies, you can go to outbound processing, but you see this arrow mark, which is, I'm saying new. So this is the front end, this is the flow which is coming, and then it goes to inbound policy, it goes to backend through outbound processing. Okay, so here if you click on it, You can set the headers when it is returning, validate the content, headers, so many these policies. And let's discard this. Let's go to, all right. Now let's take a look at how the policy structure is. So this is the example of a policy structure. Start with the policy XML, and then inbound, backend, outbound, and on error. This is what I was referring to. Okay. Now, if you closely look, you can add the inbound policies here. You can add the backend policies here like this. Okay, so let me give an example. In the portal, there is a good way Microsoft has given us. If you just click on this inbound policy, you click on this expand snippet, you see this. These are the different categories of policies. Like we spoke about what is policy, how it looks, and all, right. So you see this under authentication policy, what you can do, under transformation policy, what you can do, all these things. You can convert XML to JSON, JSON to XML, right? Advanced policies are also there, and so many policies we will definitely see in the demo. But let's say if you wanted to do something, right, let me show you how the policy looks like. So this is the inbound policy. So what I wanted to do was basically do something like let's say the incoming is in XML. Okay, so I wanted to convert XML to JSON, and then if I click on this, the snippet will come here, and that will convert my incoming XML to JSON and then forward it to the backend API. Okay, so this is just an example. So similarly, if you have a base here, which means you can actually apply more policies. Okay, so if this policy is applied to this API, if there is some global policies, then that also will come into picture along with this, something like that. Okay, so now enough theory, we can actually discard all these things. We will see those things in the demo. All right, so that's it for this part, and then the next three part will be a live demo with the Postman, and don't forget to watch the rest of the videos. Thank you. This is continuation of the API management demo, and this is part 5. So in this video, what we are going to see is we're going to see how to access the APIs using our gateway URLs that we received through the Postman. So I will cover two important demos in this video. One is how to access the API with the keys, and then the next one is to apply some inbound policies and see how the policy will look. And especially the one that we are going to apply today is the client certificate verification policy. Come, let's dive in. I have opened up my portal, and if I go to API, you know that we already have this API in place. So let me go and pick up to the test, and let's take an example. So let's take an example of like get categories, or in other words, we can also say get products. Okay, so let's go to get products. Where is that? All right, so let's go to get products, and this is the URL, right? So I copied this URL. I'm going to open up the Postman, and if you already have the Postman, well and good. If not, you can use the Postman from the browser, or you can download the Postman app itself and then open it. I have the Postman app, and I clicked on the new HTTP request, and in the URL I'm pasting the URL. If you look at this closely, this is the gateway URL. This is not the developer URL. This is the gateway URL, and in order to access the product, this is the final URL. Okay, so now if I hit on send, so immediately we got 401 access denied, authentication failed. Okay, there are two things, important thing. One is authentication, one is authorization. Authentication is 401 status code, which means it doesn't know who we are. Okay, authorization is something that it knows who we are, but we do not have sufficient privilege. That's called authorization. Right now, authentication has failed. So it clearly says that it is missing the subscription key. Okay, so basically, if you remember, every time that we execute from here, like if I do a send, okay, it will receive a request properly, like it got the response only because it is sending the subscription key also along with that. Like for example, if we try to do this through the development, for example, if you try to execute this from here, right, you would have got the key that has been sent that we saw in the previous demo. So basically we're missing the key. Okay, if you see this, if you're trying the same endpoint from here, this is the key. This is the key name that we have to send it in the header. That's why we were failing it. If you send it from here, it will give you the response. Let's go back to our Postman and go to header. Give this header name, and then the key you can take it from here, or you can take it from your profile as well, like from the profile here as well. Okay, so let's copy this. Let's go here, put this, do a save. Okay, we don't need to save. Do a hit. You see this? We got the response. All right. Now this is something that we know how to access the API using the API key. Alright, now let's take a look at how the inbound policy works. Before we apply the inbound policy, we need to create a certificate and upload the certificate. So if you come to this portal, to the API, to this left side, under the security, there is something called certificate. Click on certificate. There are two options. One is CA certificate and certificate. Go to certificate and click on add. I'm going to provide a name called Essential API Cert, and then you can use either the certificate from Key Vault or from the custom one. So I'm going to choose the custom one, which means I have to have my own certificate. If you don't know how to create a certificate, you can go to my channel and watch this video. You can know how to generate the self-signed certificate in your local, and I have already generated the certificate. So I'm going to choose that certificate. I choose the certificate and I have to provide the password. So once I provide the password and click on add, it is going to validate and the certificate has been created. Okay, now once the certificate is created, there will be something called thumbprint. Okay, so save this thumbprint. We will be using this shortly. All right, now the certificate is there. Now let's go back to API. Go to API, click on our API. So on the API, there is something called inbound processing. So if you apply a policy to this inbound processing, it gets applied to all the incoming APIs. Okay, so here, like I said, click on this policies and then you need to add the inbound policy. If you come here to the inbound and then click on snow ship it and authenticate with client certificate, you can actually include this policy. Okay, now I have already created the policy, so let's take a look at the policy. So I'm going to replace this policy with the correct one. I'm going to replace this policy with the correct one, and then I will explain you. So under the policy, under the inbound, what we are doing is we are doing a condition, a choose. So when the condition, when the incoming request certificate is null, or if the request thumbprint is not the thumbprint that we have, which we just copied from the certificate, then return a status code 403 and then tell the reason that invalid client certificate. Okay, that's the return response. So we have applied one policy, which is authentication towards the client certificate, and then we're going to save this. Okay, once this is saved, let's go back to Postman. I'm just going to hit this again, and you see this. Now we got 403 invalid client certificate, exactly whatever we just configured it. So how do you have to attach a certificate from your front end and send? Go to this Postman, go to file, go to settings. Under the certificate, you can add a certificate. Now you need to choose the pxf file, exactly the same file that you uploaded there. So let me quickly pick up that file. I attach that file and then I need to provide the password and then say add. So I pick up the file, I provided the passphrase, and then the next thing that I have to give is the host name. So the host name is basically, if you go to the overview, and the gateway URL is the host name, not the developer portal. Okay, just copy this, say add, it's added. Now let's close this, hit on send. Now you see I got the OK response because the client certificate was sent from the Postman and the thumbprint matches it. That's why we were able to get that. All right, this is one of the policies that you can apply, important policies, the authentication policies, to protect the API from unauthorized access. So we saw this. So in the next demo, we will see how to implement the throttling in the Azure API Management. This is continuation of the API management. This is part 6. In this video, what we are going to see is how to implement the throttling in Azure API Management. Okay, so I have opened up my API management that I have already created. And if I come to APIs and select my APIs, and what we are going to do is I'm going to apply the throttling to one of the API. Okay, the policy that we are going to choose is at the API level. The scope is not at the global level, it's not at the product level, it's at the API level. So I'm going to choose the get all category API, and when you choose this API, if you go to the inbound policies, see inbound policies and backend policies. So basically go to the policies, and then this is the inbound. So what we have to do is select inbound, go to snippet, and here what we are going to do is rate limit. Okay, so let's quickly search for that rate limit. So you see this says set usage quota per key. That is one kind of API, and here what we are going to do is the limit the rate call per key, limit call rate per subscription, right? So let's go and choose this one. So you see this automatically this appeared, and basically what we are going to do is rate limit by key. So instead of doing a rate limit by key, let's do a rate limit, and then the calls will be the 5 calls. Okay, renewal period is seconds, which is like 5 seconds. Okay, um, and then you can remove this. We don't need this counter key. So that was for the different policy. So now you have added this one, and gonna save. Click on save. All right, let's correct this. Click on save. The policy has been saved. Okay, so this is specific to this policy. So let's go to the testing and click on this one. Take this URL. Let's go back to Postman, and here I'm gonna replace this URL. Okay, I'm gonna hit on send. You see this, I got the response. So rate limit we have set to 5. So I'm gonna hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it. So within 5 seconds I got hit more than 5 times. So that's why it got 429 too many requests. So once the renewal period, which is like 5 seconds that I have set, so it has to wait at least for that time, and then after that, if you wait for, see, now try again in 35 seconds. So basically too many requests came. We need to wait for like 35 seconds based on the configuration that we did, and then if after that if you hit send, it will come. So I'm gonna pause that for a second. Okay, so let's try now. All right, so after I wait for a certain time, it is giving me response. Okay, so that is how this policy works. So because of the rate limit policy that we have set, it is restricting the calls that is coming simultaneously by the same person. So many requests if it's coming, it is limiting the call. All right, that's how this works, and you know how to apply this throttling in the Azure API Management APIs. And let's talk about how to implement the caching policies in the next demo. In this video, I'm going to show you a demo on how to implement the caching policy in the Azure API Management. Come, let's dive in. So what we're going to do is I'm going to select the Get Products API, and if you come to the inbound processing, you can actually add a policy. So here what we are going to do is add the caching policy. You have multiple way of doing this. You can go to this policies, go to inbound, and select the caching here. Get cache from value. You can even use the cache from the Redis cache, but this is one way of doing it. You can see this cache lookup value. This is the key and all these things. Let's discuss this. Let's discard this, and I'll show you another easy way. Click on add policy, and this is one of the predefined policy. So click on the cache response, and here you specify how many seconds it has to be holded. So I'm choosing as 60 seconds. When I save, the policy has been added. Basically, if you go inside the policy, if you click on code editor, you can see the policy here. So basically it says it's adding the cache lookup vary by developer is false, and everything is set to false so that it evaluates properly. And you should notice that in outbound there's a cache duration of 60 seconds. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we have this policy in place. Let's go to products. So this is the products that we had on the earlier one. So I'm click on send. So right now if I click on send, let's see how long it is taking. It took 4 seconds, 4.87 seconds. Now click on send again. You see this 514 milliseconds, which means our caching is working. See, the cache is returning the data, so it's pretty fast. You can see there's a huge difference, 1/8 times of the response, right? So that's how the caching policy works, and you can actually experiment with the Redis cache also. That's also possible from the API management. So this demo will conclude all of our API management thing that we studied from part 1 to part 7. I hope you enjoyed and you learned. This is one of the important topic in Azure AZ-204 certification path, And if you haven't watched the previous video, don't forget to watch and give me a thumbs up if you like it. If you have any questions, do let me know in the comment section and I'll be happy to help you. Thank you. Thanks for watching. If you like my video, don't forget to subscribe my channel, like it, share it, comment it, and never forget to click on the bell icon.